Coach?
Doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
That's great to hear, man. So I want to hop on and kind of get some of your kind of insights on. You're still a college coach right at Hunter College, correct?
Absolutely. And I have
Awesome.
some questions for you too, because I did a little
Awesome.
research, you know? You have
Perfect.
to.
Yeah, of course, of course. So I saw some of your recent videos. Kind of some of them were a little bit controversial. One thing I wanted to ask you about was your opinion on that weight cutting. So you're very much against weight cutting, correct? At a younger age?
Yeah, so I don't primarily like with the wrestlers that you're working with, they're mostly secondary kids, like high school level, or you
Yep.
have college guys in there as well.
Um, we have probably like 5 or 6 college guys in with the high school guys, but we have mostly high school and youth. So six year old to 18 year olds is where most of our wrestlers are.
Yeah, with the weight cutting thing, obviously it's an individual basis of where the athlete's at, but even the majority of wrestlers we're going to get now, it's like we're having one teams are having a problem filling out every single weight, right?
Yeah.
This is like I'm talking about like a base level high school program, maybe Rhode Island, maybe New York, maybe upstate New York, like D2 smaller school type of deal.
Yep.
And it's like as a coaching community, right? Like, why would we turn people off from the sport when we want them to participate in the sport? And if you look at the participation numbers, like they've actually been stagnant on the boys' side, and we see the girls' side growing tremendously. So if we can get more student athletes, especially in these smaller high schools, say they play football, they play lacrosse, they play other sports like multi-sport,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
and that was more of the where I'm thinking of it from that lens. Like we want to get people who want to join the team, who can make a difference. Maybe they're more athletic, but they're not as specialized in wrestling. We don't want to turn off those kids because when you're in a smaller high school, that's different at Hunter, right? Or at the D3 level, especially the D1 level. We want to keep these kids involved and we want to keep them on the team because that's how they're going to win duels. That's how they're going to promote their program at the high school level is by having numbers and filling the weights. And then I also was commenting with somebody about, the different weight classes. They reduced the weight classes recently in New York, which I think is a good thing. And we want to see kids grow into their weight classes, right? Like how many times kids come to college, they're even too small for 125. And we're just talking at the D3 level.
100%.
And we're seeing a lot of success from the upper weights, especially if we're looking at the elite top level. We're
Yeah.
starting from the top. I know you're an engineer, so it's like you got to kind of reverse engineer things sometimes and work backwards.
Yeah.
What's the
Def-
vision? What's the goal?
Definitely. And
That
I
makes
think like
sense.
a lot of it is pressure from coaches or parents to win too early. I think a lot of the cutting weight for the youth level, middle school level, high school level, they're not looking at the bigger picture. And I think they're not necessarily willing to put in that. They don't have that patience to win later on. So they're like, hey, we need to get our kid cutting weight now and winning, so that you know. I think there's a positive and a negative, right? The negative is obviously cutting weight is horrible, right? And like the kids aren't going to enjoy it. The positive side is it is important for a kid to win, because if they don't win, they will quit as well. Majority of kids will quit if they're not good at the sport. So there is a positive and negative, but I'm totally on the same page. Like with my two sons they're too young right now. They're not gonna be wrestling anytime soon. But
Hmm.
there is no way I'm pushing my kids to cut weight. The way I kind of advise my wrestlers is, um, you know, you're cutting like 2 to 3 pounds during season if you're a high school kid, and then for like a national tournament or like a bigger tournament where it's only a one-time cut, that's when you can cut a little bit more weight, and we teach them the right way to do that. So, having to cut, even for a high school kid, depending on your size, having to cut 10 to 15 pounds consistently the entire season, every single week, like twice a week, you're not going to be able to train. You're not going to be able to get better at at your skills, which is what you were saying in the video before. You were saying the focus should be on getting better. Number one, your technique. Number two, your strength training and nutrition and flexibility and everything else.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to hear your thoughts on it. I like how you said like you periodize for the bigger tournaments. So it's periodization. It's like, when I was coming up, I'm a little older, like we didn't have as many. It's like, oh, pop and flow duels or like Super 32, right? Or War at the Shore. Like there wasn't as many national tournaments as we see now. But yeah, if you want to go crazy for one of those tournaments, that's only a twice a year thing. But to do that consistently throughout in college is a 19-week season or high school season, from November to February. If you're going to do that week after week, how many times have you seen a wrestler you like maybe was on the same team who was really good and they were just done by the end of the season because with the weight cutting, because there's an emotional strain.
100%.
And it's just like with the scale thing. Yeah, you're trying to beat the scale. You're not trying to beat the person in front of you. So how could you work on your single leg mat finishes, for example, like how are you going to work on defending the shin wizard when all you're worried about is getting the weight off?
Yeah.
That's an area you need to improve on. This is a specific, I'm bringing up something that just comes to my head. How that's a specific, very area. You keep getting stuck on the mat. You keep getting stuck in the shin wizard. You don't know how to beat that position, right? Maybe they're a junior or senior. He's not worried about that. He's like, I got to get off the 3 pounds. All right, let me go check my weight. And it's this fixation on this number in our head that means absolutely nothing because you could do everything right.
Yeah.
And still lose.
Definitely.
And we want to raise that, right? We want to raise our odds. We want to raise our chances as coaches to put the wrestler in the best position, like you said earlier, to win, to build the confidence.
Yeah, 100%. And like, even with college, I mean, the nicer thing with college is there is less competitions than high school. Like high school is normally, I'd say, twice a week. They'll do like 2 duels a week. With college, it's normally once a week, probably like a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Normally, like you'll peak for that like Friday or Saturday, so it's a little bit easier. But realistically, most kids are cutting wrong in the first place. So I would say a majority of people are cutting weight by not eating. And it's super hard to even lose weight because food isn't that heavy anyways. And they won't eat the whole week, so they have no energy to train. And a lot of times you'll see wrestlers better at the beginning of the season than the end of the season because they were training so hard, they were getting all their technique in on the off season. Then when they start focusing on cutting weight, they're too exhausted to focus on getting better at wrestling. For me, the way I would cut my weight is I was doing around 8 to 10 pounds, and I was like a 165 pounder. So I think the size you're at definitely depends on how much weight you should be cutting. And this was in college. If you're a 125 pounder, 10 pounds is a lot different than if you're a 195 pounder, or 197. So, if I'm peaking for a tournament, a dual meet Saturday, I start eating. I make like Sunday. Sometimes I'll do cheat meals, whatever, because I just cut weight. It's probably not the best thing to do, but Monday I start eating clean. I go slow on salts, sugars, stuff like that, and I start eating clean. And I start drinking a lot of water. All right, and I'll be heavy. I'll still stay 10 pounds over even Monday and Tuesday, because I'm drinking so much water and kind of almost like cleaning out the system of any salt and stuff like that. And then as I get closer, I may cut back a little bit on the food. But like if I'm wrestling Saturday, it's Thursday, I'm still like 7 pounds over. I'm not 1 pound over Monday if I'm wrestling Saturday, if that makes sense. I'm not drained. And then Friday, I normally get 2 workouts in where I'm cutting weight. And I'm not like killing myself. I'm throwing sweats on. I'm flow drilling. And I'm doing multiple workouts so that I can still eat a little bit and drink a little bit. Like, I think it's better to work out a little bit more to be able to eat a little bit and drink a little bit. And then I'll wake up. Maybe I'll do, if I'm like a half pound over, maybe I'll cut weight the morning of the dual meet, or sometimes I'll be on weight.
Yeah, that's a system that you created that worked for you. And this is was at Drexel, right? You
Yes,
wrestled at
correct.
Drexel. So
Yeah.
tell me about your experience with high school versus college when it came to like weight cutting. Did you change your methods, or did you not cut as much weight in high school?
So in high school, I did not cut weight really, and I was trying to gain weight. I was 113 my freshman year. My sophomore year, I went up to 145, and then I stayed 145 my junior year, and then I went to 170 my senior year. And I almost kind of even regret in college not keep going up. I'm just going to give an opinion about weight classes.
Yeah, you cut out. I hear you now. Yeah, I wanted to hear your opinion on the upper weights. I think we
Yeah,
share the
so
same. Yeah, I think we should.
the upper weight is not that their skill level isn't as good. It's just the general fact that there are more people you have to beat in the middleweight. Like the average
The
wrestler in
law
high
of
school,
numbers.
it's all about numbers. It's not. I'm not saying heavyweights are bad at wrestling, and a lot of times, like a lightweight might not be good in heavyweight because the styles are a little different. You know what I mean? A lightweight might come to heavyweight, start shooting a bunch of crappy shots, but can't recover because the guy's 285 pounds laying on you. So I'm not saying the technique necessarily, but it's just in general. Like a lot of high school teams don't even have heavyweights, so you have to
That's
be what the best out of like I mean, my state's super small. You might have to be the best out of like 30 heavyweights. You know what I mean?
and
Versus a 100 or 200 145 pounders.
And coach, it goes back to what I was saying before. Like, let's think like, why is there not the heavyweights? Where are the heavyweights in that high school?
Football.
Where they're on the field, right?
Yeah.
And they're not being reinforced to do wrestling because their football coach thinks that he's going to have to cut a lot of weight and he's going to lose his strength and his performance translating on the field. Because I like view it from like the broader lens, right? Like college level, and then we have to think about like these smaller high schools if we really want to grow the sport.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
and it takes coaches who are like, no, we're not going to force your 240-pound athlete to cut weight. They're going to be good right where they're at. We have a weight class for them. We just want them to learn the skills, hand fighting, learn to get inside.
Yeah.
Having that communication with the other sport coaches at the high school level, I think, is huge,
I
and being on the
definitely
same page as them.
I
But there's a
definitely
lot
agree.
of these like archaic thought processes behind wrestling, where as coaches we know like the value of obviously hand fighting, being able to pummel, coming inside,
Yeah.
getting into the X's and O's of wrestling. But of course that's going to help your athlete.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
concerned, why are they not physical? Well, how could they learn how to be physical? You get them on the wrestling mat, you get them to
Definitely.
learn how to hand fight appropriately, and not going to say they're going to be a master wrestler in a week or one season, but you're going to see their performance skyrocket. And there's transfer to sport. Wrestling can coexist with other sports.
100%. And I see the parents of my athletes that do multiple sports, even like a sport that you wouldn't even expect, like soccer. And the parents are saying he's so much more aggressive. He's not afraid of like bumping into somebody to get the ball. And a lot of sports don't have that much physical contact, so people are nervous about that. But after you've wrestled through a season, you're not nervous to hit somebody. Lacrosse, football, and like I was surprised when they said soccer because I'm thinking soccer's gonna be a very unphysical sport, pretty much, but it's helping kids in all aspects. And I definitely agree. Like with the cutting weight aspect, is that's turning people off. And we run like advertisements through Facebook, like
Mm-hmm.
for our club, right? And I had somebody comment recently, you know, hey, the main reason why I don't want my kid to wrestle is I'm afraid of him getting an eating disorder. And it's like that is holding people back. And it's like, instead of giving them, what we do here at Iron Faith is we give them a nutrition plan. We're gonna do the
That's great.
opposite. We're gonna give them a plan. Hey, this is what they should be eating. Um, try to stay away from junk food. But the biggest thing I see nutrition wise for athletes is they're not getting enough protein in. They're having like they always get enough carbohydrates like with all their snacks and just food in general. But the biggest thing I'm seeing a lack of with athletes, with our wrestlers, is just a lack of protein. Like they're not eating enough meat, or, you know, if they're not eating meat, they should be supplementing with protein shakes as they're in like older in high school and stuff like that. And that's the way to go about it as a coach, instead of being like, oh, let's, you know, survive off of a piece of bread the whole week. You know, it's like, let's get stronger and we'll figure out the weight classes, you know, later on. Like, I hate when athletes come up to me and go, not hate, but like athletes will come up to me during the summer and be like, oh, what weight should I go? I'm like, you're 4-5 months out. You don't need to worry about that. You need to go get better at wrestling. And then as you get closer, you can talk to your teammates and figure that out later on.
And from people from like, yeah, the comment section could be like abysmal. The comments are crazy, but there's like the outside perspective and the inside reality. Like, even if, and I obviously talk to a lot of wrestlers who've competed like yourself at the highest level, D1, right? Yeah,
Yep.
if, just because you competed at the Division 1 level doesn't mean you understand what it's like to deal with like your average high school wrestler in the club, or somebody who's new to the sport, or a multi-sport athlete. Maybe you know, they're more committed to soccer or hockey, and they're trying to learn wrestling. Or, you know, you don't. There's the like, people think coaching is going to be, all right, we're going to just teach you, just teach all technique and do all the fun stuff, but there's a lot of logistics, scheduling, administrative side of it. And I think a lot of former wrestlers who aren't coaches don't really understand that. And then also what you have going on is dealing with the parents. So
Yeah.
yes, we're going to show you guys do a lot of great technique, which is awesome. You do a lot of fun stuff, but that's only like a small part of it. The
Yeah.
broader picture of, say, Iron Faith, like the
Yeah.
holistic view of all of the other interworkings and things going on behind the scenes, so to speak. And, you know, I think there's like when you're teaching somebody who's relatively new to the sport, you have to start with like a system, a curriculum. And that's what I wanted to ask you, like, as an engineer, like, so for your system, your curriculum, like, what is some of your philosophy in terms of like fundamentals, positioning, that type of thing? How do you start somebody, say they're like 8, multi-sport athlete, which is great. You want as many of those as you can, because those kids are going to pick up the technique right away.
Yeah. 100%. So what we've created, and we've gotten a little bit of backlash outside of our club, but what we've created is a belt system, essentially. And we've created the techniques we want people to learn at each level. So when a kid comes in, we have an online course for them in addition to the practices that they have to watch and pass in order to get brought up to the next belt system. The level 1 course is simple. You know, you just started wrestling off, you need to get in a good stance. You need to be able to do a penetration step. You need to be able to do a sprawl. You need to be able to do a single, like a basic single, basic double, basic high crotch, stuff like that. And that's like just for the first 6 weeks. Most kids are kind of already past that at that. And then level 2 is single finish on your feet, like uppercut, sweep finish, double finish on your feet, high crotch finish on your feet, sprawling when somebody shoots a single, double, high crotch, arm chop breakdown, spiral ride breakdown, half Nelson, and far side and near side cradle, and then tripod stand up. And then how the rest of the levels go is they're all based off of sequences, because wrestling isn't about learning a million moves. It's about understanding your specific moves and getting those sequences down. So level 3 is going to be like, when they sprawl, what do? You got a backside finish. You got out the back door finish. You got cut across, go double. And then even as you go further on, it's like, essentially, as you start wrestling better opponents, how good can you hit these shots when your opponent is reacting to you? And that way, we get the kids to understand those fundamentals. And, you know, they can always learn the extra fancy stuff if they have little niches, because we don't want to make everybody like robotic necessarily, but they've got to get these fundamentals down. Everybody needs to know a single, double, high crotch, even if you don't double, single, and a high crotch. You need to know those. You need to know those techniques. You know,
It's
Jordan
the
Burroughs
big three.
Jordan Burroughs may only be hitting a double, but if you tell him to hit a single, he can hit a single, and he can hit a high crotch. And when you're in those scrambles, you're going to be put head on the outside, head on the inside on one leg. So that's kind of how we build these kids into it. And another thing we do now that we have multiple clubs, a lot of coaches, every week I send out a curriculum. for the actual techniques shown in class. So all the coaches are on the same page. They can always show some like fun move at the end if they want, because like you said, that balance of like fundamentals and keeping the kids interested in the sport. But it's important as we grow that all of our coaches are on the same page so that we can consistently evaluate what we need to change. So what I mean by that is if we're all coaching the same stuff and we're seeing our athletes struggle in an area, it's easy to change our curriculum so that we can make it more efficient. But if everyone's doing random stuff, all these coaches are just showing random stuff, when we see issues in our techniques, we can't change anything because we don't even know where the issue might be. So that's why I think it is important to have a curriculum. I don't think there's one right way, but there is 100% certain things that kids need to know. Like
non-negotiables.
Exactly. And that's stance, that's doing a penetration shot, that's doing I call a single-legged angle knee drop. That's from my coach, John Clark from Sacred Heart. He was one of my club coaches back in the day. And, you got to know how to stuff the head, whizzer, sprawl, push back. You got to know how to – I personally think tripod stand-up is the best stand-up to go to. But we do have some other stuff. Some people – I think another thing with tripod stand-up is it's physically a difficult move to hit. Strength-wise. You need to be pretty strong to do a tripod stand-up. So if you have a weaker wrestler, they'll struggle a lot with that. And maybe they'll do like sit out, Granby or something like that, which is okay. But we make sure athletes know the fundamentals, know the stuff that's going to work at the highest levels, and then they can create their own wrestler once they actually understand what wrestling even is.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously I have a lot of questions, but I want to piggyback off the stand-up situation. So it's like back in the day, you taught kids outside like stand-up, a traditional explosive stand-up.
Yep.
And then you get into the coaching realm and you realize, well, not everyone is type 2. Not everyone is explosive. Maybe that's more for the wiry, lighter weight, your lighter weights, but we're probably not going to teach the 220 that they're probably going to
Jump up and get chopped.
Yeah, they're going to be inclinated to do the tripod stand-up. And then you said that's the art of coaching. So there's obviously the science of coaching. We were talking earlier about like nutrition. That was great. You were talking about protein, the way you manipulated fluid intake. And
yeah,
that's something, that's why I couldn't add that in that video. That's like the ins and outs of, when do you increase your carbohydrates? When do you decrease them? That's getting into the weight management piece. And I wouldn't even call that, but my point is that the art of coaching is like being able to look at this athlete and being like, yep, he's not a tripod guy.
Yeah.
Nope, we're gonna encourage him to do the more explosive variation because of his body type, his structure, his genetics, physiologically. So with the belt system, and obviously I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've been involved with that for a long time, and I know you have the judo background. Do you follow the same belt system? And I guess the other question is, I'm sure it incentivizes the kids to get to the next level because it's basic reinforcement. And that's something that I've talked to other coaches about the belt system down here in New York. So I wanted to kind of does it keep the kids motivated and engaged to get to that next level?
100%. I'll show you. We do shoelaces. So this is our like white belt.
Okay.
So after 6 weeks, the kid joins. He gets tested. He'll get his white belt. He'll get a T-shirt. And then going forward, we have like stripes, and we just followed our.
I can only imagine the type of criticism, and like backlash from the belt, like, oh, we don't want to be like those guys. We don't want to be. But I get it because I'm coming from like a jiu-jitsu lens.
Yeah, and
they have curriculums. The best jiu-jitsu schools, they have a curriculum in their academy. I can talk to these guys in the tri-state area. They, just like you're saying, they're using a web.
If you don't have a curriculum, I think it's a laziness thing. If you don't have
a system.
Yeah, if you don't have a system, if you never thought about, hey, here's the things I think my kids should be learning as a coach, and you're saying, oh, it's not needed, just make it random, you're a lazy coach. You didn't put enough time into
one day we're going to show, it's like, it doesn't make any sense. One day we're going to show a throw, and then we're going to show a high crotch finish, and then we're going to do a front head. Like, where's the rhyme and reason in all this? How does it blend together? And you're right. I think something you said earlier, you cannot identify the problem.
Yeah.
When you don't have a curriculum, you cannot identify the weak area. Now we're just guessing, you know? What is it
100%.
measured? Is it managed? That type of deal. You
Yeah.
have to be able to isolate the problem. So it's like, okay, it's this specific area. Single leg finish on the mat. We got to work that.
Yeah.
Keep going back to that one because it's common.
Yeah.
Finishing takedowns. It's like
100%.
I always say, like it, it's easy to get to the leg. The hard part is finishing. Anyone can get to the leg.
Yeah. Just tap and go. Hit him
Yeah,
in the head. Shoot.
that's where the intricacies come in. So yeah, I want to hear a little more about the belt system. Cars driving by, and kind of you got the white belt. That's the laces, and then are they really into it? What are the kids' like perspective on it? Do they?
Yeah.
Because it's different.
So, um, as far as I know, all the kids enjoy it, and we have kids who are like, it helps with retention for sure. So we have kids who are like, maybe they're gonna stop, but maybe they want to go get the next belt, and they don't want to, fall back. So it helps with retention for sure. And second, like all the concerns people have, like, oh, I don't want to make it like, you non-competitive anymore. All those concerns, that's a separate issue. The kids are going to still compete. We're not like shutting down our competitions and then like all it is a belt system. It's just an additional thing, and it solves a lot of the issues with wrestling. It solves the issue of it's seasonal. I don't want it to be seasonal. I want kids wrestling all year round. I don't mind if they do multi-sports as well, but I want kids to excel because I think wrestling is the #1 sport for development in kids. So I want these kids to be in wrestling all year round, and that helps. This LACES program will help with that. I had people come up, they're going to sign their kid up for wrestling, and they say, we're just going to wait until our kid gets their black belt in karate. We're not going to sign up right now. We're going to sign up like 2 years from now because we're going to wait until our kid gets his black belt in karate. And that's where it switches for you. It's like, okay, well, wrestling is way better than karate. So I would way rather have kids saying that for like going to the karate school and being like, we'll sign up for karate, but we got to get our gold laces from Iron Faith first. And that's going to take them till they're 18 and they don't have to worry about karate. But so that side point. Another thing is very important is you have young kids who are very athletic who don't learn the fundamentals because they're winning because of their athleticism. So they have no incentive to learn the techniques. So it hurts them when they're older. So you have an 8-year-old come in, super athletic, doesn't need to know any techniques. He just grabs you and throws you on your head and pins you. And he doesn't care what the coach is saying because he can do whatever he wants and he wins. Well, now, yes, he can, but he's not getting promoted unless he learns the techniques in addition. So now you have these super athletic kids who you always struggled to teach them the techniques at home. I literally have these kids at home drilling these techniques on their own, listening to the coaches because they know that they're not going to get promoted unless they get these techniques down. So that helps with that. And it helps the kids, like, they coming soon, like, we're actually almost finished up with it, but they literally have to complete the course before they get tested. So they have to literally watch every technique, answer questions on the techniques before they even get promoted. So, I mean, how can you say how can you say the LACES program is a bad thing or a belt system is a bad thing if you have kids at home watching technique videos to get better at the sport? So if that's what it's creating, if this system is creating kids to spend extra time focusing on their technique, to me, it's a no-brainer, and we've only seen it benefit. We do not see it in any way hinder the kids' competitiveness, especially for the youth. The kids are much more competitive because here's what I do: you just use it as another you use it as another motivation. So you bring out your two best athletes and they're drilling takedowns back and forth for the youth kids. And you go, all right, drill back and forth takedowns. And then you make an announcement to everybody, that's the way we want it done. That's the type of drilling it's going to take for you guys to get to the next level, to get your next laces. And then that moment they all start drilling way harder. They're way more focused. So that's kind of my opinion on all of it. I mean, there's probably a little bit more, but, it's definitely been a benefit. And I think the main reason is, like, people don't want to do it because they don't want to take the time to create their own system. It takes time to figure out, and then you're like, oh, well, what moves do I pick? Keep it simple. If you're creating your own system, keep the move simple. There are moves in wrestling that everybody hits. Like I said, single, double, high crotch, backside finish, out the back door finish, crackdown finish from a high crotch. You need to know an arm chop. You need to know a spiral. You should know a couple turns from with your legs in. You should know cradles. You should know some armbar stuff. And doesn't mean they have to hit all those top moves, because the top moves are more, I would say with top, it gets pretty specific on your style. Leg rider, I like cradles, but you should still kind of know everything. Know a pretty good variety on top, so that you're more comfortable defensive wise. And then, as they get higher in the belt system, it becomes a little bit more personalized, so that they actually like, hey, hit your number one shot, and I just evaluate, hey, how good is their hand fighting, how good is their shot, and how good is their finish with their number one and number two shot, etc.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. So my first coaching experience, I was at the modified level, because we have that here in New York, and I was coaching at a middle school, and we had great kids. They were really into wrestling in this area, Section 5, like Rochester area.
Yep.
And one of the things I would tell them is, when you're a state champion, no one's going to ask you your middle school record. Like I would always hit, like, because when kids are beating themselves up after a loss, or they're already evaluating the outcome at the middle school level, because they're looking up to Cornell wrestling and these bigger programs, and obviously there's the exposure up there. But I would always go back to that, and then it's always like the old days, like, are we going to teach the kid the headlock at 8, or are we going to teach them the single leg? And then it's like what you said in the beginning of this call, which was thinking long term, thinking big picture. What moves are going? Good morning. What moves and techniques are going to have the highest ROI in the long term? Because obviously we want wrestlers not only to be in the sport, but once they're hooked, stay in it as long as possible, and hopefully go and compete at the second level, the collegiate level, whatever, degree that may be. And that may be a conversation for another time. There's a lot of wrestlers, they think it's like D1 or bust, but there's so many opportunities from D2 down to JUCO, like that you can find your niche, you can find where you fit in, and being part of a program that's going to help you after college as well.
Yeah.
And it's really the coaches have to be, their job too is to guide the athletes, not just on the mat, but off the mat, and set them up with people, internships, job opportunities, networking, different professional networks within the academic institutions, that type of thing. So yeah, it's like what we said, it's not always about the X's and O's. And you were talking about level 1 stance. Like yesterday we ran a clinic, right? First thing I did is I did a pre-assessment. I said, let's see your stance. And then we watched all the guys do their stance. And then I was like, okay, we got to change our stances. Because if you can't shadow wrestle, right? Like you're saying, like penetration step, sprawl. If you can't do the basic mechanics without a partner, how are you going to do it with a partner correctly? If you can't sprawl with your laces down and circle and keep your head, this is just basic baseline shadow wrestling. Like that's grade 0. That's level 0. So like, in terms of teaching technique, like we were doing like an inside trip. You guys do a lot of the judo influence. Like you teach we were teaching the mechanics first, like use the tape and do the do the mechanics of the inside trip before you actually do it with a partner. Yeah. So there's certain techniques I like to have them do, like that one, for example, is a pretty advanced one, depending on the wrestler, but just getting the mechanics down without a partner, and then introducing a body action. And then you'll see rates of injury in the practice room decrease. Our coordination is on point. So I like to have them do the movements and mechanics without a partner first, and then obviously with the partner. And younger coaches sometimes don't realize that. Like you can't just put them with a partner right away. And these were high school kids we were doing the clinic with yesterday. And if they've never done this technique, like they're going to hurt themselves or someone else. We're doing more amplitude throws, more of the fun stuff we were talking about earlier. So kind of a little bit of like my thought process. And and then the last thing really, with the belt system, again, we want kids to come out and wrestle? What are all the kids watching right now? What is on every weekend? What's going on in Boston coming up? I think this weekend,
UFC.
UFC,
Yeah.
MMA. It's a different time. They're going like the UFC and MMA is a pipeline of interest.
Yeah.
So okay, they start seeing Sterling. They start seeing Bo Nickel. They start seeing these faces and these names, and then they can start investigating. Oh, what did they do? What were they involved in? Oh,
Yeah.
wrestling, you see, and we create that connection. So it's like why I wasn't against, like, there was people who were like, oh, we shouldn't do the board shorts and compression shorts. No two-piece, like singlets forever. But the kids are watching UFC Fight Pass. They're on YouTube better than we are. And
Yeah.
they're seeing these athletes in jiu-jitsu, in judo, in different
They'll go to
disciplines.
jiu-jitsu. They'll go
They'll
to
go to
jiu-jitsu over
jiu-jitsu.
wrestling for sure.
And you
Even not, yeah.
and I'm not that's why I'm not like, when you said the belt system, I'm not like totally turned off by it or like
Yeah.
alarmed. I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Like they're already familiar with this. This is a way to get them into the best sport
Yeah.
for skill and life development, wrestling. Like, so my point is, it's like you got to know your audience. You got to know the rest. Like they're watching UFC, they're watching grappling, they're seeing these things, and so it's not totally foreign to them, where it's more foreign to the parents or the older generation, in my opinion.
Definitely.
I get it though. I get it, and super cool, man. I think you could keep kids in the sport and give them an incentive, which
Yeah.
and provide them with like a proper framework to build on. You know.
Definitely. And even like your point on you were saying like showing, the mechanics before doing the moves, right? Before going fully into it. And that is the biggest issue you see with advanced wrestlers going into coaching. If you're an advanced wrestler, you're not even a Division I national champ, you go to coach your first high school practice or the club scene, it is so hard for our coaches when they first come in to simplify things down. Just to
Yeah,
only
absolutely.
show, like, hey, today we're showing a single leg finish on your feet for 30 minutes straight, and we're really going to actually get it down. And it's going to be and it's going to be like no setup the first day. And like taking that time, those weeks to progress until these kids actually get the technique down, instead of being like, ripping through technique and not slowing it down enough. You were at the Division I, you were at whatever college level. Any college person is way too elite in their mindset when they go in to coach. They got to simplify it like crazy. Most of the people, most of the time when you show a technique and you say ready, break, 30% of the kids or 50% of the kids don't even know what the move was. And you'll see them drilling the most random stuff. So we do this similar thing, especially for our youth. Like every practice, we do what's called a scarecrow drill, where one kid just stands there with their arms spread, and the other kid does single, double, high crotch, but doesn't finish. Not the shoot through hop over one. Like he literally just hits a single, but stops in like the proper position, doesn't finish, then hits a double, then hits a high crotch, and does 3 of each. And we do that every single practice, even if the youth kid is like a state champ or whatever, because
Then
the youth state champs can't hit a single double high crotch still.
and then you and your coaching staff can assess the mechanics in the sense that where I call like this, and obviously it's knee, shoulder, hip alignment.
Yeah.
So like, you get what I'm saying with that? Like,
Yeah.
so if the kid pauses in the single leg, like a head on the inside single, you could actually look at their mechanics and, are you vertical? Are you horizontal? And then you guys could use your coach's eyes to see the mechanics, essentially, with the scarecrow drill you're mentioning. And you can assess in that moment. We're always making assessments,
Yeah.
And when we do it, like, okay, go and do the move, like to the finish, the kid's back is over, like, then it looks weird. It looks and we have that coach's eye. That's what coaches develop. I like what you said earlier about, 30% of the kids didn't remember what you said. Like, we did a great job yesterday. We had some of our former wrestlers who graduated come back, and they were like, I was giving them the opportunity to show technique, and it's funny. I'm like, oh, you have to like, you got to dilute it. You have to like,
Yeah,
you have
way
to,
more.
because they're coming in with like a D3 wrestling mindset,
Yeah,
and I'm like, no, you have to do it in steps. You have to do regression. Like you have to slow it down for them to be able to attain the technique.
yeah.
For me, I know you come from the engineering background. I always view it from like the phys ed background because I went to school for PE and teaching. So you're
Mhm.
doing things in progressions or
Yeah,
regressions. And I
yeah,
kind of use that. And then obviously working with kids, you know, like you got to keep it to like maximum three things. We want you to do X, Y, Z. After
yeah,
three, they're gone. You
a
lost
hundred
them.
percent.
And like you have like a 30-second window.
Yeah,
As
and even
coaches,
if
we want to
like,
say everything, right? Like we want to say everything about and it's you have to learn to. And it took me a while, and I'm still
yeah,
working on it. Actually, I'm still working on it, and myself is just really less, less, less,
yeah.
less, reduce instruction. Boom,
And
boom,
what I
boom.
always say is like, if circle them up multiple times if you have to, but don't sit there for 10 minutes, 20 minutes explaining your technique. The kids need to be drilling. The kids need to be doing the move that you're showing. And if anything, most of the teaching happens when you walk around. And so,
Circling,
like,
yeah.
yeah, when you walk around and you like go to each group and you help them with their positioning, that's where most of the coaching is going to actually be happening. And, you know, yeah, like we have those same rules for our coaches. Hey, show it a max of only twice. Show it like right before you show the move, explain exactly the whole thing that's going on. This is the move that we're doing. Because sometimes you'll just start showing the move, and then the kids will just be like, "Well, what are we doing in general? Like,
It
what's
went
the point of the
right
drill?"
over their head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys have guidelines, and how many locations do you have? I know you like. Do you have guidelines for coaching instruction? Like, do you provide the coaches with an instruction like
Yeah.
one, two, three, and then how many locations do you have now in New England?
So we have two locations, and then we're partnered with the third.
Warwick was the main one.
Warwick was the first one, and we have one in Bristol, and they're both in Rhode Island. And then we are partnered with a third club, which is just jujitsu in Massachusetts. Um, and those are our three right now. And tell you the truth, we've got a lot of things to figure out before going on to more because, you know, it's it's important to make sure your product is very, very good and make sure that, you know, you've really got a lot of things dialed down before you start spreading yourself thin um, and kind of moving on forwards. But yeah, so we got two, and then a third one that we're partnered with just jujitsu. Um, and yes, we do have a coach's manual. It's I haven't I've just like sent out like videos and messages to the coaches like, hey, here's the things we want to focus on. So it's one of two things. One, I have a coach's manual where me and my brother Steven is well, my brother Steven and my brother Mike and my brother Steven's wife, we're the four owners. All right, so it's a whole
That's who I
family.
thought. That's who I thought you were at first when I did my research.
Yeah, Steven. So,
Uh, that's
but yeah,
hilarious,
so
right?
yeah,
Big
we learned a
wrestling
lot.
family, yeah.
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. So for sure.
But yeah. So we have stuff for how should you coach when you circle everybody up? How should you coach when you walk around to each group? Um, how should you coach at a dual meet? You know, how should you coach? Um,
Decorum, behavior, standards.
yeah,
Yeah, you have to.
you got to because you got to go and you got to like, you know, for a dual meet, there's got to be a meeting beforehand with the kids. You know, you have these new coaches that don't not necessarily. You got to introduce yourself to all the parents because we may have people from different clubs. Here's one of the rules we have, which is maybe controversial. You talk to the kid after they win or lose, right after the match, no matter what. And here's the reasoning behind that. Just I don't think it's necessarily for like a college room or like a high school, but if you have like 40 kids that you're coaching and you're there by yourself or with one other coach, you may never talk to that kid about the points you wanted to let him know about that match. So although the kid might not take it, like maybe some kids you want to wait till later, it because of the certain scenario, right when a kid wins or loses, you go talk to him, you tell him what he did right, you tell him what he did wrong, and then you go and coach the next kid. just because of the logistics of it. I think a lot of times, like, some people might freak out and it's a kind of an issue. Like, you don't want to talk to them right away or whatever. Like, there is like variations with that. But I think for a club coach who's coaching a lot of people, you know, you either tell them right away, or you have to like keep track of notes. So you have each wrestler, maybe you just type your notes in if you don't feel like you want to tell them now. So you at least remember what you want to inform them on what they did right and wrong. And then, in addition to our coaching manual, I meet every week with our coach. Hey, here's the things that you did right. Here's the things that you did wrong, as well as some logistical stuff. And then we do a team meeting with all of our wrestling coaches where I just say, like, you know, you pretty much just say what they did right. So in groups, this is the way we've been told how to do it. When you're in a group setting, you only praise. You never, this is a thing I think it's important as a coach. In a group setting, so if I'm a coach telling my whole team, I do not do negative things. I do not say anything negative. It's only praise. And then you correct on a one-on-one basis. So if there's an athlete that was if there was 3 athletes that did horrible in the dual meet, they had no effort, but there was like, or say all of them but one, because we'll get the extreme. Like, say all of them but one kid who did really well and worked really hard. You go into the start of the practice and you just say, you guys all wrestled like horrible. You know, you didn't put a good effort forwards, and that one kid sitting there like, I'm getting yelled at and I did well. It's gonna diminish the excitement for the group. So in a group, you want to get everybody fired up. Hey, you guys did great. We're super excited about growing it, whether you're talking to your staff or you're talking to your team. And then if you have issues with kids individually, or even 3 kids doing kind of the same thing, you go one-on-one with them. You tell them, you correct them one-on-one so that you're not messing the morale of the whole team. So those are just some of the little insights that we do for our coaches, though.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So, yeah, before you move on to the other locations, it's definitely like the scaling issue, right? You got to make sure all the systems in place before you scale. A lot of the times with businesses, and obviously we work with a lot of businesses, a lot of people down here in finance and different things. Like, you have to scale appropriately because people try to scale too soon. And it's like what you said, you're going to like run. So it's important you're getting all of these methodologies and best practices, so to speak, in order before you guys scale even larger. But yeah, like putting kids on blast in front of the group, let's keep it real. Yeah. Like, if you want to have that conversation, you have that in private. But this is something they really emphasized when we were in college, like in coaching, like, because when I went to school, it's like, if you're going to have a meeting with, like, say it's a strength and conditioning staff, like, you know, you always praise in public and criticize in private. Yeah. But it always should be constructive criticism, like positive first, negative, positive. Or you have to, because people aren't going to listen to you, even if you're right. Like, yeah, you were terrible. You have to, as the coach, you know, you're a leader, and as a leader, great responsibility comes great power. You know, the old, it's, and even if the morale was terrible, you have to keep it positive because you set the tone. Even if they didn't perform the way that you wanted to, you have to keep your cool. You have to you have to wear like the mask of success always, because the kids take cues off you, even if they wrestled terribly, right? Or an extreme scenario. And then when you have, you talk to that wrestler like, hey, this is what we need to improve on, the effort wasn't there, the aggressiveness, like, tell me what's going on. That's in private. Maybe, you know what I would even recommend? Like, you, another staff member, and the athlete. You always want a third party there. Yeah. When you're 100%. Dealing with these types of things, because then nothing could be said that you didn't say, and, you're getting into like more of the liability. But I always see, like I said earlier, I see things from more of like the school lens. Yeah. But
there's similar stuff though. Like, I mean, we text our high school athletes. We do 3-way texts, 2 coaches, 1 athlete. You can't have there's just some liability stuff, like you said. Like, you can't have, you need to have another eye on some of those more sensitive conversations.
100%.
And I think that's a big, like, what we're both saying right now is a huge.
People don't know this though off the like, they don't come with this equipped with this knowledge. Like this is a business. Even if you're a coach at an institution, this is You have to handle things in a professional, right, demeanor,
Yeah.
attitude, and you have to keep, you said a good morale, very
Yeah.
underrated from a mindset perspective, morale, and teaching the kids how to build morale. And then
Yeah.
obviously in your club, you have your club culture, you know, doing like different things like birthdays, maybe you shout the kids out, or
Yeah.
doing breakdowns, doing fun. Morale is huge. And then we know how personal losing is.
Yeah.
It could kill morale. It could kill a team culture.
Yeah.
But even if a coach isn't going to verbally instruct the wrestler after they get off the mat, just there's power in proximity. Just like, you know, putting a hand on the kid's shoulder, or like knowing like, hey, if you want to talk, I'm here. I got to coach this next kid. There's
Yeah.
got to be even like a 5 second,
Little
just even.
like acknowledgement of hey, I'm here for you after the match. Because it's like that's what the parents want to see too, and the athletes. They want both of it. Like, they want to know that your coach cares, and we do care, and we need to make that extra effort to show that. We can't just like assume that, like say that we do.
It's
I,
tough. You're right. If you're one coach with 40 kids on the club, one kid's from Rhode Island, one kid's from Mass, you know, Connecticut, you know, that's a different dynamic that people don't consider. That's the
yeah,
outside perspective versus the inside reality I was saying earlier. But yeah, I thought that's great though. Any form of acknowledgement. Some kids want to be left alone. Some want the feedback. Some
yeah,
want a medium, but something. Just
yeah.
that.
You got to give them something for sure. And the other thing I just want to touch on one more time, if people didn't hear, it's like because this is a huge problem with coaches. You just lost a dual meet. Your team did horrible. All right, first practice after. Okay, you want the kids to work really hard, right? You want them to put the pressure on, go super hard in practice, learn the techniques, because we need to change this around. We need to win the next dual meet, right? Here's one conversation. Everyone sits down. You guys did horrible. Nobody put the effort forward that we need to. That's not the way we want you to wrestle. And I'm talking for 20 minutes straight. Boom, you stink, you know, blah. And then, all right, let's start jogging. Let's go. Let's start warming up. Everyone's just like not even talking to each other, like faces down. Or you have a different conversation where one kid did good, one kid did really well, and you go, hey, I want everyone to clap it up for James over there. He killed it, and that's the way we want to be wrestling. And I know every single one of you guys can do the same thing, and we're going to turn this thing around. Let's put the work in today so that we can win this dual meet coming up on Friday. Let's get it, and then they start going. And
Yeah,
like,
and
it's a whole different feel.
my experience, like, you know, I was coached both ways. I've experienced both. And like a lot of older coaches would be like, oh, they'll go with the first option. Like, well,
Yeah,
that's how I was coached. And there is a time and place for it, maybe if there's a motivational factor,
yeah,
but that has to be used seldomly. I
yeah,
mean, seldomly, because majority of the time it's just going to go in one ear out the other. It's going to go right over their head. The message that you're trying to convey, even though it's coming from a good place, you're passionate, you want to win, you want to do your best, they're not going to listen.
yeah,
Well, the second example you gave is awesome. And it's really just like in school, it's like PBIS, you're reinforcing positive behavior. Now, that wrestler who you said killed it in the dual meet, now, one, they want to model that kid. Two, you're
yeah,
reinforcing positive behavior and you're exemplifying what the club, what the team, you know, it doesn't have to be necessarily within our programs, what they want to, they're exemplifying the actions and attitudes that you want. And
yeah,
how do you get more of that? One turns into two, two turns into four.
yeah,
So if you're always praising the kids who do the right things, you know, it's only going to build the bottom up.
yeah,
And I think
100%.
that it's counterintuitive at first for a lot of coaches, but you have to reward the people who are working hard. How many times in school, like there's a student, there's a couple, they do all the right things, but the teacher's just focused on the kids who are doing the wrong things. So now the kids who did the right things, their motivation and interest drops
Yeah,
because they're like, why am I going to keep doing this? Well, you know, I'm
yeah.
not
But
getting
I'm not getting
recognized.
attention. I'm not getting any extra help. Yeah,
I always believe in like the top down, like you reinforce the what you saw that was awesome, like you said, and then maybe you want to have those private conversations, like we said earlier,
yeah.
but you don't do that in the beginning. You got to start the week off positive. You got to
Fired
start the
up. Yeah,
practice. You're not going to get the effort that you want, and then the coach is going to be confused. Like, wait, we just spent 20 minutes me talking,
yelling at them, and they're not doing anything. They're not fired up.
and and we could even, you know, another thing too, it depends on the age level, is actually asking the wrestlers, like, what do you think happened? Why do you think we didn't perform? Or what could we
Yeah.
do different? And then maybe having like the leaders or captains or whatever
Yeah.
model it. Because then when they're involved and they're answering, that's how you get buy-in.
Yeah.
Is when they feel like they have autonomy
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the process.
100%.
Yeah. Even it could be something stupid. Say you're like in the weight room. You could be like, all right, guys, you want to do pull-ups or chin-ups. They both get the job done. They both get what you want done, but you're making them feel have this sense of ownership and choice. And that increases buy-in with these kids.
Yeah.
They want choices.
Perfect.
That's that a
Yeah.
lot of it is that when it comes that's a hard thing I think we struggle as a challenge as with coaches is like building like internal motivation. Obviously yourself, you wrestle at a
Yeah.
high level, like trying to get the kid to have like, all right, I'm going to go to the club 4 times a week or whatever, like
Yeah.
getting them to buy in and build that intrinsic motivation. And I think maybe that's a question. Like, how do you get kids to jump levels? How do you get them to buy in at the club? Is it just the belt system? What do you guys kind of do to increase their level of involvement? If you
Yeah.
see they could be
So,
successful, yeah.
yeah, I would say there's a couple things that we do, and there's things that we need to continue to get better at for sure. Um, I'd say the most important part is your energy level in the practice room. So if you want to get the most effort from your athletes, you've got to bring that as the coach. It's not the athlete's job to be fired up for practice. It's your job to get them excited about it. So it's even more important than, maybe even the tech. It's not more important than technique, but like you'll see clubs or coaches that don't know what they're doing with wrestling, but the kids go mad hard and the kids win. And you've got to be able to bring that energy. Put some music on, slap some kid's hand in the beginning of practice, you know, ask them if they're fired up, bring that a lot of energy, extra energy, get the kids to smile, get them excited. So they're not like, the opposite is they come in and they're just like, oh, I got to practice today. Like, are we going to work super hard? I don't really feel like that. I don't know if I feel like going super hard today. You just get them fired up. You have a welcoming smile to them. You say they're looking great with their wrestling technique. You're going to win a state title this year. That is the number one thing to motivate, to have a great practice, to motivate the kids. So that's our big thing. I think team bonding is important as well. And this kind of going back to the thing, pointing out the wrestlers that are doing well. So, hey, the drill's going on. You have 2 kids going pretty hard, wrestling intense. And I got this from one of the brands documentary. I think he was saying that, where like if a kid was doing really bad, like not drilling hard, he sits in the corner and watches everybody else drill super hard. And then if the 2 kids are drilling really hard, everyone sits down and watches the 2 kids drill. And then you say, that's how it's done. So pointing out the kids that are doing it right. And a lot of times, like if you keep the technique simple, which I think like you should, and like you can always show the details as you walk around. Hey, like this guy's more elite. He needs to get his shoulder positioning a little better here. You have them show the technique too. Like for youth, I literally don't even show like much technique for youth. I have the 2 kids that already know what they're doing show, this is how you hit a double. All right, everyone else, because then do it again or whatever. Like I don't even show any technique, and then I just say ready, break, and everyone does it, and then I go around and help those kids with the techniques. The kids that are more elite, hey, hand fight a little better. The kids that don't know what they're doing, you slow it down for them a little bit. But then they see that, oh, other kids can do it. My peers can do it. I can do it. But as far as that motivation piece goes, I would highly recommend that if you're a coach, you want to get your kids as fired up as possible. You've got to bring that energy to the room. If you're having a bad day, you need to change it. And that's going to be contagious to your wrestlers, because you have 40 wrestlers coming in with all these different problems, pissed at their parents, whatever, like girlfriend issue, and you need to change it. And you have your own issues going on, family issues, whatever. You need to be the one that changes their mindset with your energy. Big smile, smacking them in the hand, getting them fired up, and just getting that energy going. So that's
And
my opinion.
yeah, absolutely. And as a coach, you have to like recruit coaches like that too and look for people who have like that personality. I think what you're saying is definitely true. Like the extroversion factor, the motivation factor. Find people who bring the energy. Find people with a good attitude. Um, Being able to separate what's going on between personal and professional. As the coach, again, I said this earlier, you're the leader, so you set the tone. And that's why it's important before you can lead others, you got to lead yourself. If you have everything going, firing on all cylinders in your personal and professional life, you can come in and coach, because coaching is very selfless. And
Yeah.
you have to be able to give you 100% because you're dealing with so many different athletes, so many different backgrounds, places, things going on in their life. So you really, yeah, I agree. The coaches, they set the tone. They have to be the ones. It's not the athletes. It's not reverse. It
Yeah.
starts top down. It starts with the coaches and also teaching the wrestlers, like when you walk through those doors, like girlfriend, homework, family, drama, there's got to be a switch, and teaching them about this switch in life.
Yeah.
And being able, and especially, at the college level, like whatever's going on, like that has to, this is a separation.
Yeah.
This is once you walk into this room, you have to be able to focus for 2 hours, 8% of your day. It's really not that long. And then if you want to talk about it after practice or you need help, then we can, but when you come in, you have to be ready to work. And they need that modeled, and the coaches model. And it all starts with the coach. I like what you said about the drill groups, because that's pinpointing. In teaching, it's pinpointing and modeling.
Yeah.
So sometimes, and I'm sure, and I've done this, and now I'm doing more, is we want to show everything, because it's like
Yeah.
we
It's like
want to
about
show it
us.
the
We want to
correct
make it about
way.
us sometimes too much.
And it's like, no, let's get this group to demonstrate. And then you call out another group to demonstrate. So maybe you show the technique once, and then you're like, all right, who thinks they got it? Then you have them come in the center. And now it's even more powerful because they're watching someone their age, maybe their team leader, somebody they look up to. And if they're modeling the behavior you want, the athletes,
Yeah.
not us, not the old guys, not the adults, the kid. And then you get another group. All right, who else thinks they can do it? And now everyone in that wrestling room is like, oh, I could do this.
Yeah.
Like my buddy did it. This is
100%.
more for the younger, but still works at the college level. And I had the last thing with the brands example. Yeah, takeaway is powerful. It's one of those tools that you got to keep in the back pocket. Sometimes you got to take it away. You have a kid who keeps coming late, and you know how it was old school, like, oh, let's make this kid do push-ups, or like,
Yeah.
no, you're just gonna sit and watch, no problem. You're gonna
Yeah. You
watch
don't want
today's
to. You don't want to
practice.
wrestle today. No
And we're
worries.
not
No worries.
no, they're not punishing.
Yeah.
This is the gift is practice. This is the gift. Wrestling is the gift.
Yeah.
This is the gift. This is not work.
Yeah.
You
It's
get to do
fun.
this.
Yeah.
And obviously the season can be a grind, especially at the collegiate level, but you have a choice. You have a great opportunity here. This is not what my grandparents did.
Yeah.
This is, you get to do
Definitely.
this. You get
Yeah.
to be part of this. And if you're taking advantage of it, maybe it's a lack of gratitude, then, well, you could watch. It's okay. And then what it does is it, like, instead of, like, all right, you're going to do like 50 push-ups or something, like, even like, no, they miss it, and they want to be a
It
part
makes it.
of it.
Yeah.
I think
I
that's
100%
even more
agree.
powerful versus like the old school way of like, oh, this kid's is late. I'm gonna make him do like, yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're just not. Don't worry, we're just gonna get someone else.
Yeah.
And
And
then
they're
the
like,
kid's
oh, what?
thinking
Are
like,
you kidding me?
yeah, like what do you mean? Like, yeah, like you keep showing up late, or like, you have kids who just want to they want to just compete. They don't want to show up to the practices. No, we already filled your spot for that weight. You're gonna
Or,
sit. You could come with us. You can come to the tournament,
yeah.
and they just got to sit there all day. That's how
Um.
you really get them.
Yeah.
Like, this is stuff that I've been thinking about a lot. And also just putting it back. It's different at the high school level, but just putting it back on them. Like, oh, like as coaches, like we, one, talk a lot, and two, we want to lead constantly. Let them lead a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. What should you work on?
Yeah.
People would say that's lazy. No, we're trying to teach athletes how to think
Yeah.
conceptually. And, like, that's probably why you've excelled in wrestling, like that engineering, that like you have to be able to think about wrestling to a deeper level. You can't.
Definitely.
I think it helps people jump levels when they can really break down what they're doing, explain what they're doing, the why. Because
Yeah.
it's not like this superficial thing anymore,
Definitely.
you know?
Yeah, 100%. All right, so I'm gonna head out, but I want to, if any of my athletes are watching or later on when we post this, I got a lot of athletes that are interested in, wrestling in college. What's the best way to kind of get in contact with you? Or I think you had a form maybe on your link on your page, questionnaire for your college. Is that the best way to reach out if they're interested in maybe wrestling for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Best way to contact me, direct message on Instagram.
Okay.
Easiest way, something that they use. If you're interested in Hunter in college, you got to fill out the recruiting questionnaire form
Okay.
that's in my bio. The link's in my bio. Doesn't matter if it's our institution. If you're interested in a school, you have to fill out the recruiting questionnaire. You have to get into their database. That's how it's like the first step in revealing if this is a true prospective student athlete, you know. Yes,
Perfect.
of course, email. Yes, of course, reach out, but you have to show that you're also doing your part in
Yeah.
the process, because the coaches are going to um like basically balance the ROI. Like, is this person worth
Yeah.
it? Who's more interested? who's
Yeah.
who's It takes two to tango.
Yeah. 100%.
So Hunter College Wrestling, fill out the recruiting questionnaire. Link is in the bio. Direct message me. I'll always segue them to fill out the recruiting questionnaire so I can get their name, their coach's name, the parent's name, emails, phone numbers. That's the most organized way to keep everything in a system, pretty much.
Perfect.
So any
Awesome.
guys you have interested in, you let me know. We'll talk to them. We'll figure it out and see if it's a good fit. That's the big
All
thing,
right.
to see if it's a good fit.
100%. All right. I appreciate everything and look forward to talking to you some more at some point.
Thanks, coach. Take care.
All right.
Have a great day. Bye.